Hi everyone. As James said, I'm a sibling of someone with Prader-Willi, Katrina, who is sitting in the audience there. I've brought her along today. Take a bow. I just wanted to share with you my experience and as James said, give parents some advice as to how to make it easier for us. It's not an easy journey and there's no right or wrong way to go about it. But upon volunteering for this speech, I was looking over the schedule and the title of my speech is My Life with PWS, which has been interesting for me to think about because I've never defined my life in that way. The way that my parents have brought us up has never put Prader-Willi at the centrefold of our lives. And if I can start this speech off with one piece of advice, it is to not define your family by your Prader-Willi child. It's there, we know that it's there, but it'll only make it harder for siblings to want to identify with the family, and you might find that it just pushes us away more than wanting to connect as a strong family. I can't exactly pinpoint when I realised that Kat was different from most people. The first few years of our lives, she was my best friend. We did everything together. I copied her in everything, as any normal little sister would do. But I remember always being the bossy one, more confident than Kat. Kat would always do things for me instead of me doing things for her. It still happens today, and I exploit it just a little bit. But a defining moment in my life which I can remember at the earliest age of realising that Katrina wasn't quite normal, was when I was little. I had a Pongo dog, which turned out to be my brother's dog in the end, but it was mine initially. And you and my brother, sorry, he's not here, but he's 18, just turned 18. He used to fight me for it all the time, and I'd only want Pongo when Ewan would fight me for him, and then he'd just sit in my room under my bed. And we were having another one of our arguments, and I was crying, Ewan was crying. And Dad took me away and sat me down in the corner and was like, Alyssa, I think it's time we went to the toy shop and got you another Dalmatian puppy so that Ewan can have Pongo. And I was like, well, that's not very fair. It's my dog. And Dad was like, we see you as the eldest child, and sometimes as the eldest child you need to make sacrifices. And I was really confused because I was like, I'm not the eldest, that's Katrina. And Dad was like, but we see you as the eldest child. And I remember being quite upset about this because I was like, I don't want to be the one that needs to make the sacrifices. That's not my role. Why don't I get what I want? So I remember that clearly. And Ewan's probably, 2 or 3 here, so I was probably 6 or 7, but I remember that in my mind. Kat and I went to the same primary school. We went to the Patch Primary School. She was a year older than me, as I started school earlier and she started school later. And this was really difficult for me. I remember prep was the only year that I wanted to hang out with Katrina, and I still did. I used to hang out with her and her buddy. But then as primary school progressed, I noticed that she was quite an outcast and people would tease her, and I'd often join in on the teasing because I didn't know how to handle it, and I was embarrassed by it. And I often just found it was easier for me to bond with people by making fun of her instead of standing up for her. I didn't have the maturity at that age. And looking back, I feel really bad about that, but you don't know when you're that young. You don't know how to handle it. Kat had an integration aid as well, which was sort of defining in someone as disabled at school if they have an integration aid. So that made it harder for me as well. Kat would often just hang out with Gig, her integration aid, instead of the other kids. Gig was great with her, and Gig was really good with me as well. I used to get counselled by her, and she would understand why I was embarrassed, and she'd give me tips on how to deal with Kat publicly, and she used to take me out on the weekend and just do one-on-one things, which I felt was really important. Katrina made one solid friend in primary school, and that was another girl who was disabled, and she was a couple of years younger than her, but never really any strong connections with other people. And I'd often feel quite angry or hard done by listening to other people idolise their older siblings, and I couldn't really connect with people on that sort of front. And a lot of the time people would be like, I didn't even know you had a sister. And I was like, yeah, because I wouldn't really talk about it. If I was to redo it, I would have preferred to have gone to a different primary school to Katrina, and I think that the high school she went to Rossbourne, which is a special school in Hawthorn. That was just the perfect environment for her, and I don't know how much advice I'm allowed to give, but I think special schools are really good for people with Prader-Willi, and particularly for your children. Putting them in separate environments, I think, is really important, because like me looking back, I don't like that I joined in with other kids in picking on Katrina and things like that. That's not fair on me to have gone through that, and it kind of set up my view for the rest of my teenage years and how I dealt with Katrina's disability, because I was still embarrassed. So I went to Tintern Girls Grammar in Ringwood, and Kat went to Rossbourne. And going into high school, I was still embarrassed, and I didn't really want to associate with the fact that Katrina had Prader-Willi, and so often I just wouldn't talk about it. But I made really good friends there who made me feel a lot more comfortable about it. And you know, when it eventually came out that Katrina had Prader-Willi, they were just like, oh, okay, and they were interested. They wanted to know more about it, but it was never in a derogatory sort of way. And then if I struggled to tell someone that she had a disability, they would do it for me, and I found that really supportive. It was just hard for me thinking that people were going to judge me based on Katrina. So simple things like having friends come over and having the pantry locked, and people being like, why do you lock your pantry? And I was like, oh, the dog gets in, I don't know. I just never really used to say it, because it was too embarrassing for me and too complicated, too annoying to have to explain and define my life by Prader-Willi. It's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want people to then judge me or judge my family based on Prader-Willi. So dealing with it through my teenage years, I was angry and found it hard to connect with Katrina, and I'd often just be annoyed at her when she'd be nice to me. She'd greet me hello after school, and I would just snap at her, because I didn't have anything really to connect with her about. That's since passed. We have a really great relationship now, but I've noticed that my brother has sort of just come out of the same stage that I did, so I think particularly in your teenage years is when you really start to deal with it. So as parents, just sort of what support you can give your siblings for that, being open about it, but not, as I say, defining your life about it, but being aware that it is hard for us, particularly in social situations, especially if your kids are going to the same school. I think it's something to be really aware of. Holidays. Holidays were always interesting for us. Kat doesn't react that well to change, and I'm sure most Prader-Willi people don't react well to change. Our last trip overseas was to Europe in 2009 to 2010. We did a lot of travelling around Europe, the UK. It was a great trip, but it was really hard because Katrina just didn't respond well to all the moving about, the change in her schedule. So there were a lot of times where there was big temper tantrums, and I didn't know what to do, so I kind of just retracted from this situation, which, you know, made it hard for me to really enjoy family time like that. Food's never really been the centrefold of our lives as well. I know that's a big thing to do with Prader-Willi, but Kat always ate what we ate when we ate it. She just had smaller portions of what we had. We were still allowed treats and things like that. And Kat was allowed, you know, a little bite of it or something. But I never felt like I missed out on any sort of eating opportunities because of Kat. So I think that's a testament to Mum and Dad though, and how they've brought us up and structured our meals and things like that. Obviously I know Kat had a problem with stealing food and stuff throughout high school, but my brother and I weren't really involved in that, which I think is really important. We don't, Pride of Willie is there, but you don't want it to be your kid's responsibility to deal with it on behalf of the parents, because we're just not mentally ready for that, because we're still trying to process it ourselves and deal with it ourselves. And if we really knew the real low parts of what Pride of Willie is, it would be even harder to identify with it. So I started to really get over it when I met my best friend Tess. She's super accepting of people with differences, a really warm, inviting person to be around, and she just sort of connected with Kat on a level that I'd never been able to before, and it made me want to get to know her on a more personal level. So since then, that's Tessa on the right. It's her 21st birthday today. Happy birthday, Tess. Since that, I've just been able to see Kat on a different sort of level. She's funny. She's super giving. She's really annoying at times, so that's fine, Kat. But she's just a lovely person to be around. I mean, we have great banter between us now. I take her to work. Kat has a nearly full-time job working at Miss Marples in hospitality, so she's around food all the time, and she seems to be fine, which I think is really amazing. Kat and I used to play soccer together. So Kat's done a lot. She's broken a lot of the stereotypes that I think we define Pride of Willie by, which I'm really proud of. And it makes me more proud to identify with her and to tell people about her achievements. And last week she just came second in, what was it? First, Katrina. In some national horse riding competition. I don't know it exactly, sorry Kat, but she came first and something. She got a lot of medals and a lot of ribbons, and she just is kicking goals, which is amazing. And so, there's been times where I have wished that I had a normal older sister, but that's not reality. My life is my life. It's as perfect as it'll ever get. I don't know any different, and I have been given every opportunity to succeed that I need. So Pride of Willie hasn't detracted from anything in that case. So yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm finally over. I've finally accepted, and I've finally gotten through the hard teenage years. And yeah, I'm actually nervous a bit about the future. I don't know what's in store for Kat, but we have a really supportive family, and I know that we'll get through it all. Thank you.